Professor Peter Kastor. He serves as the inaugural Samuel K. Eddy Professor of History at Washington University in St. Louis, where he also serves as Associate Vice Dean of Research in Arts and Sciences. He is the author or editor of 8 books on the founding era and has just completed Creating a Federal Government, 1789 to 1829, a landmark digital project that reconstructs the careers of over 30,000 federal employees from the first decades of the federal government. In addition to his scholarly work, he has written for venues including the Washington Post, the Huffington Post, The Conversation, and Fortune magazine. He has also been a go-to source for local and national media, talking about the focused history of the founding era and the long history of the American presidency. A committed and public historian, Professor Kastor serves as the chair of the Board of Trustees at the Missouri Historical Society. He also collaborated on numerous documentaries and podcasts. Professor Kastor is an award-winning teacher, which does not surprise me, knowing him well. In addition to teaching at WashU, he works regularly with educational groups such as this, and has conducted professional development programming for groups ranging from public and private schools in St. Louis to the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, the Air War College, the Federal Judicial Center, and the U.S. State Department. We are thrilled that Professor Kastor is here with us.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. I like hearing that in response. And thank you so much, Steph, for that generous introduction. I want to ask everyone also to let's have a round of applause again for the whole team that has put this event together. Well, I'm delighted to see you all here in St. Louis. I hope you enjoy your visit here. I've lived in St. Louis for almost 30 years, and I agree, our Midwest nice really does make this a wonderful place to be. I'm delighted to meet all of you. I'm delighted to see you here for this important work. Now, as you'll see in the schedule of events, this is listed as the dedication, which I found an intriguing term. That was, in fact, a commonplace part of any constitutional convention, state or federal. Different people would do it. Sometimes it would be ministers, sometimes it would be governing officials. Today, you're getting a historian. And I like that because I'm going to tell you a story from history. These dedications are done in many ways. My approach is to give you a charge, a mission in the days ahead, because I don't need to give you dedication. It's your dedication that has brought you here. I want to help get things rolling as you begin your work. I want to share some history with you as a way to call on you to engage in the really important work ahead and to dedicate this convention to the fundamental questions of the U.S. Constitution and what it means to amend that Constitution. And to frame this, being a historian, I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you a story about 2 friends. You may have heard of them. Their names are Thomas Jefferson and James Madison. And I begin with the fact that Jefferson observed the writing and ratification of the federal Constitution with great interest, but he was watching it from afar. When the Constitution was debated and ratified, Jefferson was still in Paris. And in 1789, he was still in Paris when the first Federal Congress met. And on September 9th, he wrote a letter. And he chose to write that letter to his friend James Madison. It was a friendship that had been brewing over the 1780s and, of course, would intensify during the 1790s and then during Jefferson's term as president. In that letter, he wrote, "The question whether one generation of men has a right to bind another seems never to have been started either on this side or on our side of the water." He then wrote what I think is an amazing phrase. It's really terrific. "I set out on this ground, which I suppose to be self-evident, that the earth belongs in usufruct to the living, that the dead have neither powers nor rights over it." Now, usufruct is one of these phrases I use in my undergraduate classes and watch my students scratch their heads. What the heck does that mean? Well, Jefferson had a very specific meaning in mind. It was a commonplace term in the legal practice he had had as a young man. And during that legal practice, he had dealt with a wide range of cases, but much of it involved land ownership. And in his time and in his mind, usufruct meant the right to enjoy the benefits or profits of a thing, and for him that most often meant land. And in the letter he wrote about this in various ways, various dimensions of this. wrote about debts. He wrote about family inheritance, which was a subject of great concern to him. You name it. But then he added this. On similar grounds, it may be proved that no society can make a perpetual constitution or even a perpetual law. And then in typical Jeffersonian fashion, with great complexity, he explained that a generation was roughly 19 years and that each generation should write its own constitution. Sounds fascinating, right? Yeah, he never sent the letter. He was planning to send it, but he didn't send it. Because 3 weeks later, George Washington nominated him to be the nation's first Secretary of State. News reached Jefferson about a month later, because that's how long it took for it to cross the Atlantic. So Jefferson returned home, focused on this new job. He got to work in the State Department. And it wasn't until January 9th, 1790, that he sent this letter to Madison. Madison was also in the federal capital, New York, which was the capital for almost 2 years. He was a member of Congress. Madison didn't reply for almost a month, and that wasn't his style. Jefferson and Madison's correspondence, that's the largest set of correspondence in Jefferson's enormous cache of letters. They wrote regularly, they wrote quickly, but Madison had to think this over. And on February 4th, 1790, he wrote to Jefferson. He wrote a draft before he sent it because he wasn't sure what he wanted to write. And then finally he wrote, "My first thoughts lead me to view the doctrine as not in all respects compatible with the course of human affairs. I will endeavor to sketch the grounds of my skepticism. The next time you disagree with a colleague, a friend, a classmate, try to state it in words as elegant as that." He was being nice. He then went into detail, writing, "If the earth be the gift of nature to the living, their title can extend to the earth in its natural state only. The improvements made by the dead form a charge against the living who take benefit of them. This charge can no otherwise be satisfied than by expecting the will of the dead accompanying the improvements." So here's what he was telling Jefferson in the most polite and elegant possible words. You're wrong, and more importantly, you're nuts. You want us to rewrite the whole Constitution? Easy to say, easy for you to write in Paris. You don't know what I just went through, getting this Constitution written and getting this Constitution ratified. So he was pushing back on Jefferson. Jefferson was saying, we need ways to take into account changes. But Madison was grappling with this also, because he thought once the Constitution was finished, the work was done, but it quickly had become clear to him that that wasn't the case. In the wake of ratification, there were people who were calling for a new constitutional convention. They said ratification has revealed some areas of disagreement, some potential deficiencies, especially the absence of a Bill of Rights. We need to rewrite the Constitution at a new convention in order to do this. And it was the fear of a new constitutional convention that actually got Madison on board with amendment in general and a Bill of Rights in particular. All right. So these are two roads that are in some ways heading to the same destination. How do people modify their constitutions? And I want to step back from this story for a few minutes and then let you all get to your work. I've long taught the Constitution. My students always emerge concluding it's a remarkable document, as were the people who wrote it. They're right on both accounts. The language of Jefferson and Madison's correspondence makes that clear. But I tell you this story of their experience not to amaze you, well, partly to amaze you, but not only to amaze you, certainly not to intimidate you, but rather to equip you for the days ahead. Jefferson and Madison came to New York, committed to the Constitution, disagreeing about it in certain ways, and imagining how the Constitution might be amended most effectively. They certainly knew what was at stake, and they were tremendously uncertain, as were all Americans. Uncertainty radiated throughout New York in 1790. What was federal governance going to mean? What was constitutional government going to mean? This was the case despite the fact that Americans had written a lot of constitutions by this point. Every state had a written constitution. Some had undergone some minor revision. The U.S. Constitution was born out of the notion of revision, specifically revising the Articles of Confederation. All that said, one thing they had learned was that constitutional writing and constitutional amendment was complicated, it was messy, and most importantly, it was filled with uncertainty. I really want to emphasize that because, of course, the greatest difference between us and the people we study is we know what's going to happen to them. They did not. The Constitution was surrounded by uncertainty. Whether amendment would work was equally uncertain. And I say this to you now not to make you equally uncertain about what you're going to do, but to let you know that you're in good company, that the work ahead is challenging, but you're facing the same challenges that people did over 2 centuries ago and have faced since then. My guess, looking at you, guessing at your ages, is that the Constitution has not been amended in your lifetime. It has in mine, when the voting age was lowered to 18, long before I was eligible to vote, I would add. The Constitution has been amended in fits and starts, not just in the Bill of Rights, but after the Civil War, at the turn of the 20th century, in the 1950s and 60s. Amendment has been a commonplace practice in American constitutional history. In the end, Thomas Jefferson was wrong that each generation should rewrite the Constitution, but nonetheless, he and Madison were both trying to find a way to think about how Americans might amend the Constitution. And I call on you to situate yourselves in that continuum. I call on you to recognize the importance of the means as well as the ends. Think about how Jefferson and Madison sought to resolve this between them. Think not only about what you want to amend, but also how you want to work together to achieve amendment. You won't always agree, but like Jefferson and Madison, you need to find a way forward. And with that in mind, I hereby dedicate this convention. I salute you for the work that you will be doing, and I eagerly anticipate the words of our next speaker, and I look forward to learning of the work that you accomplish in the days ahead. Thank you so much for having me here today, and I wish you all the best in the days that follow. I'm now honored to hand over the podium to Dean Chemerinsky.